All right, ladies and gentlemen, now a couple of house rules before we get our program underway. If you have any questions or feel you would like to make a comment, please put them in the body of the chat. And time pending, we will call upon you, or at least, very worst, ask your question or read your comment. In deference to time, we do have a number of media that have been prioritized for the question and answer portion. So we will get to them, and hopefully, if time allows, we will get to the other questions. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, our first guest this evening is Dr. Willie Ong. He is a Filipino internist and cardiologist, best known for his presence on social media, where he uploads videos of him giving free health tips and advice since 2013. The Doktor ng Bayan continues to offer his services to poor communities without asking for any professional fees from his patients. He advocates for easier and cheaper access to medicine and treatment for all Filipinos. With 16 million followers on Facebook and 6.5 million subscribers on his YouTube channel, Dr. Willie Ong also remains as one of the most influential social media personalities in the country. Ladies and gentlemen, let us welcome the next Vice President, Dr. Willie Ong.
Thank you so much, Winston. Hi, Yorme, Mayor Isko. So, yes, I'm very happy to be here to talk with FIL-AMs. A lot of my relatives, Doc Lisa's relatives, live in the U.S. I studied at the University of Wisconsin in year 2000 for around 7 months after I finished internal medicine, cardiology. So I'm really quite Western trained. And I also took my master's in public health here in UP College of Public Health. But I have seen for the past 28 years being a doctor, I really feel so helpless here in the Philippines, So many administrations, and yet the health sector has been lagging behind. Maybe we are 10 to 20 years behind compared to other countries. Lack of medicines, people, lots of fake news, and like until now we don't have free checkups, free outpatient checkups, free medicines for the poor in our health centers. There are really very few medicines, and this has been emphasized during the COVID pandemic. I worked at the Department of Health for 5 years, year 2010, 2015. So I saw all the weaknesses of the government, and I said it was really very slow. And we only have a very thin safety net for our people. Konting tulak lang bibigay na yung health sector. So that is what happened during the pandemic. We lacked hospitals, health workers. We lacked the laboratories for these COVID checkups. That's why we are ranked the lowest. The Philippines is ranked the lowest in COVID response. We are also the lowest in many other aspects. Lowest in healthcare system, probably the lowest in salaries for doctors and nurses. It's really time for us to correct the health system so we will be prepared for future pandemics and other pandemics, whatever diseases. Not only that, I would just like to point out that marami talagang problema sa Philippines. Like, we have very high number of tuberculosis patients. I think that's probably unheard of in the US. Even measles, ang dami. So we are really, if you look at other countries, if they get outbreaks of TB and measles, it's probably coming from the Philippines. This is something we don't talk about, but unless we fix the health system in our country, not only Filipinos are not safe, but other countries are not safe. That's why you are afraid to go back here, diba? So because of that problem. So I will try my best to remove all the fake news, all the anti-vaxxers, put us on the right track, and hopefully have our own Philippine CDC. I'll just leave it at that. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you very much, Dr. Willie. Hopefully soon to be Vice President, Dr. Willie. I guess in that order. Our next and final guest, ladies and gentlemen, is known as Mr. Bilis Kilos. He is a 3-term councilor of Tondo, 3-term vice mayor of Manila. He is the recipient of honoris causa Doctor of Humanities for Public Administration from the University of the Philippines. Awardee of the Gawad America Award for Public Service. He is one of 10 men who matter in Asia by People Asia magazine. He was appointed to the national government as chairman, CEO, NLRC, and undersecretary of the Department of Social Welfare and Development. As you know, he was elected as mayor of the city of Manila in 2019. He is the 22nd mayor of Manila. He is an alumnus of the Executive Leaders Program of the John F. Kennedy School of Government at Harvard. He is an alumnus of the Executive Leadership Program at UP. He is an alumnus of the International Visitor Leadership Program at Washington, D.C. by the U.S. State Department. And finally, he's an alumnus of the Executive Leadership Program at Oxford University. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the man with a plan, Mr. Bilis Kilos Isko Moreno Domagaso.
Hi, Winston. Thank you sa ating mga kababayan dyan sa Amerika. Magandang gabi sa inyo. To Bong, Tony, Ray, Edgar, Janet, Neil, Manong Andy, Steve, si Ambassador Lito Banayo dito sa Pilipinas, si Edwin, Robert, Carlos, Jojo, si Armandin, si Din Nokum, Lito, Maria, Jojo R, Peterson, Christina, TJ Manoto, si Jet, yung aking Chief of Staff, at si Ray Gerard, at siyempre yung aking partner, yung aking katandem na doktor. Well, thank you for this opportunity to be with you today. I know in America, every hour is valuable. And thank you for dedicating your 30 or an hour of your time and magkaroon kayo ng interest sa darating na halalan dito sa Pinas. And of course, the same time, it is your interest also because lahat ng mga kaanak ninyo, tangan-tangan namin ngayon. Sa amin umaasa sa pamahalaan ng bansa, ng siyudad ng Manila. And one way or another also, some of you, mga kamag-anak kayo sa Manila. Well, in case of Manila, I can only speak for Manila now, pumanatag naman kayo. I think since March 2, when we launched the campaign that vaccination is the solution, and as you all know, it was in Manila when the first deployment. And in our own little way, yung aming paghahanda at yung vaccination effort namin na hindi naman perfecto, madalas kami makutya sa long lines. But at the end of the day, what matters most to me is results. Yeah? As of today, 129% vaccinated at first dose and 121% vaccinated at second dose. Magtataka kayo, bakit 100 plus percent? No? Because in Manila, since March 2, on the first day, Manila's policy is open policy. Wala nang mga shenanigans or mga cheche boreche. Tao, bakunahan, proteksyonan. Straightforward. And modesty aside, results matter. So anybody, any John Doe and Mary can be vaccinated in the city of Manila. And in fact, to add to that vaccination program, a month ago, we've been preparing for our vaccination for kids. Thursday, last week, the national government announced na allowed na yung 12 to 17. Friday, early morning, nagbakuna na kami kaagad. This is our third day of mass vaccination for 12 to 17 years old. Thousands of kids are getting vaccinated in the city of Manila. Again, with the same policy, open policy. Those who wanted to get vaccinated and protected can be vaccinated in the city of Manila. Of all those preparation, medicine, hospital, the COVID-19 field hospital in Luneta. If you are familiar with Burnham Park, Burnham Green, kung saan kayo tumatayo nung araw, Manong Andy, Manong Bong, Manong Tony. Yung pagka may nanunumpang Pangulo sa grandstand, andun kayo sa damo. That's where we build our 344-bed, 4,402 square meter of field hospital done in 52 days. No? Kaya ngayong araw na ito, for the past 1 week, nasa 500 na lang ang aming infection, despite that Manila is the most dense city in terms of population per square kilometer, if not in Asia, at the very least in the Philippines. Siksik-liglig dito sa Maynila. Alam naman natin ang COVID infection is pagsiksikan, mas malaki ang tsansang magkahawa-hawa. Alam na natin yon. We were taught of that. It's been 2 years of our lives. No? We've been taught to have social distancing and so on and so forth. But then again, results matter. In fact, when we were told to achieve 70% by September, Manila achieved it by August. Now, more than 100%. So we continue to vaccinate from a regular 47,000 a day. Ngayon, wala pa, dalawa-dalawang bulig na lang, no, tatlo-tatlong bulig na lang. Kumbaga, saturation drive na kami. Kumbaga, ano na lang kami, nagpa-punching bag ba? Dahil wala na kami halos mabakuna. And we are now concentrating all our effort to vaccinate yung mga apo ninyo dito, yung mga pamangkin nyo dito, yung mga pinsan nyo dito. At pumanatag kayo dyan, may gobyerno sa Maynila, at the very least. I'll end up with that. Then I'll listen to you. If you have some queries, to the best of our ability and experience, we'll answer it with Doc Willie here. And kaya ko pinili si Doc. Finally, napa-oo ko. Simply because you will have a clear picture of the country's direction by 2022. The major policy is very simple, straightforward. Life and livelihood. Doon muna ako tutuon. More than to the high-polluting going to Mars, going to moon idea, I'll go back to basic. We'll continue to build more housing, the way Lee Kuan Yew did it. We'll continue to build more hospital. We'll continue to build more school. We'll take our adversity in our advantage. Habang wala sila sa eskwelahan, build tayo ng eskwelahan. We will continue to build, but in a different aspect. More on investing to Human Development Index, or what we call MBN, when my professor in UP told me that 20 years ago. Hanggang ngayon, nasa utak ko pa rin yun, nasa radar ko pa rin yung minimum basic needs. So anyway, thank you, Winston. Thank you for this, and we're ready. I think Doc Willie is ready to take some questions and inquiries.
Very good. I know we have a
Philippines.
Thank you, Mayor Isko. By the way, this is a question I'm sure everyone wants to know. Is it Mayor Isko or your May Isko? Which do you prefer?
Kung saan kayo komportable. Pareho lang ang kwentada niyan.
Okay. Okay, so we will start off. I know that we have several of our media friends here who have questions for both Mayor Isko and Doc Willie, and we will start off with representing TFC. Please, we'd like to call on to the mic as it is. Steve Angeles. Steve, with your question, please unmute your mic.
Hello, thanks, Winston. Hello, good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Doc. I have one question for each of you. So, for Mayor, I'm glad you talked about the livelihood and the building there. So, of course, you're talking to some overseas Filipino workers here. 10% at any point, at least 10% of the country is overseas. So, from your experience, your interactions, what are some of the challenges that you see OFWs are facing, and what are some of your plans for them? Do you want to see more of them stay in the Philippines, or are you trying to find ways to kind of, make their contributions outside of the Philippines a lot more smoother?
Well, one of the common denominator, not only in America, of OFW's problem is the embassy, the polo, ano yung polo? Sa labor yun eh, no? Yung the one who's kausap ng mga OFW sa embahada. Nagkaroon tayo ng masamang habit, no? The state itself. I don't want to point fingers to somebody or whoever it is. Let's just do the problem. Nangyari, naging turista yung polo officer natin. Na yung mga na-appoint, hindi na yung mga career officer. Parang yung walang ka-idea-idea, the first questions that they've been hearing is that, magkano yung allowance ko dito? O ano yung mga libre kong magagamit? No? Sad to say that that is the general sentiment. I spoke with the Middle East and some European OFWs. Yun ang isang problema nila. So we'll make sure that we'll put somebody there representing the country in the embassy to really address the real situation and give attention. Yung nakakausap ng mga OFW. Second, in the case of dito, back home, no, may isa kaming pinag-aaralan, baka pwedeng buhayin ulit. Actually, if I'm not mistaken, may batas na siya. Pinasisiyasat ko pa, no, Mr. Angeles, yung bangko ng OFW, how to teach them to invest in their future while they are able to work somewhere else in the world, so that there will be fallback, no, for them, no, to start with again in the country when they go home. These are the things that we are trying to look at. No? Third, yung ahensya ng gobyerno dito, parang masyadong maraming duplicity. Alam mo, I'm a believer of redundancy, no? For some aspect in governance. Especially, when you're trying to go to the moon, you need some level of redundancy. If one thing will fail, there's other resources that can be utilized to save people going there. And at the same manner, metaphorically, ganun din sa pamamahala sa gobyerno, but not at everything. Dito 5-5 makakuha ka lang yata dito ng may problema ka sa isang ahensya, ituturo ka sa kabilang ahensya, and so on and so on. So parang these are the things that I've been learning for the past few weeks now with regard to OFW's problem. Now, I don't have the exact answer, but it seems the picture is very clear. Bureaucracy. So if it is bureaucracy, that is within the control of the chief executive. And we'll try to manage that. Not only to save, but to ease, at the very least. Kasi ang isang asset ng Pilipinas ay Pilipino. In fact, kaya nga kayo nasa Estados Unidos, kaya kayo tinanggap dyan dahil sa talent ninyo dahil sa galing ninyo. Diba? Kung hindi kayo talentado, you'll be kicked out of that country because there is no use for you in America. So if that is an asset of Filipino, how can we nurture it? Paano pwedeng pinuhin? Yeah? So, yun yung nasa radar ko, Steve.
Salamat, sir. Good answer. Good to hear that. And so for Doc Willie, you were surprised at the 2018 senatorial election. You're one of the top vote getters for OFWs. I think LA Consulate, might have been #1 at the LA Consulate, not #1 or 2. Do you see that as good momentum as you venture into the vice presidency?
Yes. The overseas Filipino workers, they're really very close to my heart. I think one of the big problems of overseas Filipino workers are their relatives in the Philippines. When their relatives in the Philippines get sick in a hospital, they ask for hundreds of thousands of money. So unless we fix the healthcare system here, it's really gonna drain the resources of the overseas Filipino workers. There are around 10 million OFWs. Sila bagong bayani, they contribute 10% of the GDP, almost 2 trillion pesos. Diba? So we really need them to boost the economy, community development. Pero of course, we're worried about brain drain and the psychosocial costs. So if we provide good healthcare, jobs, and housing and education here, I think it could help alleviate the stress and the pain suffered by our overseas Filipino workers. I'm sure you're all very worried there. Diba? Parang, how come the Philippines is like this? How come it's so far? The discrepancy is too wide, So that's what we would like to do. And I believe Yorme Isko is the best presidential candidate to fix that.
Salamat, sir. Good luck, guys. Thanks, Winston.
Thank you very much, Steve. Not to be outdone, representing now GMA Pinoy Television, please welcome Peterson Gonzaga. Peterson, please unmute your mic and your questions, please.
Hello, Mayor. Hello, Dr. Willie. The first one would be probably for Mayor Isko. Mayor, you are considered a very in your politics and whatnot. Regarding the LGBTQ community, do you see when you become president, do you see that the LGBT community would be able to would have their marriage recognized?
They're not only recognized.
So
they're part of my governance. I have no prejudice with people, whether babae, whether lalaki, bakla, tomboy, bata, matanda. As long as you're an asset to the state and you have talents that can be utilized in governance through public service, you're welcome to Manila. And that's a matter of policy. You've been seeing that in Manila. So sa akin, more than the recognition, is for them to be utilized by us, these talents. Kaya naman sila hindi ginagamit dahil yung mga leader ng mga naging leader may prejudice sa personal preference, which personal preference or personal life has nothing to do with governance. Kaya umasa ka, Peterson, na hindi lang kayo may puwang, meron kayong partisipasyon sa gobyerno if given a chance kami ni Doc Willie. Kasi may prototype sa Maynila. Alam mo dito, itong kinaupuan ko, Peter. Paglabas mo dito, unang makikita, tomboy, bakla, babae, lalaki. They all function very well. And I've been with those kind of people na very talented, but as long as you recognize their skills and talents, they excel in their field of undertaking. So I look at them as human being, not on tagging a particular, hindi ko siya linya, sort of saying. I have high respect with people. Because love begets love. Respect begets respect.
Definitely. Thank you, Mayor. Now the next question for Doc Willie. Doc, I understand that COVID-19 is a priority in the country. However, let's talk a little bit more about the other individuals that have conditions or that need to go to the hospital, but they're not. It has nothing to do with COVID. For example, I'll give you an example. My brother's father-in-law had pneumonia, but he could not find his family could not find a hospital to have him admitted. So unfortunately, he passed away at home. Is that something that needs to be taken care of also aside from COVID-19?
Condolence, Peter. Condolence.
Yes, Peter, you hit the problem right on the head. People here are just focused on COVID disease, COVID death, but they don't know that all the other diseases are increasing. Like during the pandemic, we had 22,000 more heart attacks. It's more heart attacks than usual. So more diabetes death, more pneumonia. Why? Because people are afraid to go to hospitals. We don't have enough healthcare workers. So we should not only be counting COVID death, but also other diseases. And of course, the economy. So as you can see, it's really so hard. Unless the government prioritizes and gives importance to the health workers who are very demoralized. One reason I ran, because my senior consultants, my mentors, are crying. They are crying because they feel so helpless. Sabi nila, please listen to us. No one's listening to us. And we have here Mayor Isko, who told me he will prioritize the health sector. He will do this for the country. In 2.5 years, he built 7 hospitals. Just imagine how many hospitals he will build as president.
Doc, ika-7th hospital plus field hospital. In fairness naman to Mayor Lim. Kaya lang, yung hospital ng Maynila, we are building another hospital ng Maynila. So 2 major hospital, and 1 COVID hospital. Para lang. Thank you, Doc. Thank you, sir.
Yes, pero look at hospital ng Maynila. It was very small before, and now he converted it into a 10-story hospital ng Maynila, 2 billion worth, with a helipad for emergency cases, for heart attacks, strokes. You have to get them in 15 minutes. So he knows what to do. And not only that, I asked him to order molnupiravir. That's the new medicine for mild COVID cases, which I'm sure you have. I'm also considering booster shots, vaccines for children, 12 to 17, 5 to 11. And Yorme has already started preparing for face-to-face classes with plastic shields. I'm asking him to, I think ventilation is very important. Kailangan. So all of these, I'm giving him the science, and he's really doing it.
Well, thank you so much. Hopefully, the Philippines comes up to par with other countries in regards to medical, just like how other countries in Asia are able to have their citizens be seen by doctors and not have to deal with dying outside of the hospital.
Yes. Thank you, Peterson.
Thank you, Peterson. We'd like now to call upon, representing the Hollywood Foreign Press Association, a pioneering founding Filipino member, one of only 2 initially. Please welcome Janet Nepales. Janet, your question, please, and please unmute your mic.
Yes, thank you very much, Winston. And I'm so happy to meet Mayor Isko and Doc Willie, even by Zoom. Congratulations, Mayor Isko, on what you have done already in Manila. And I'm looking forward to what you can do for the whole country. And your life story, it really interests me, from extreme poverty to acting and political success. What did you learn from these experiences that you think prepared you to become the president of the Philippines?
Well, hi, Janet.
Hello.
Yung maipakita mo sa tao na no matter what, kahit sang starting point ka nagsimula, you can go to the finish line. Although along the way, maraming tibo, pako sa kalsada, or stumbling blocks along the way, yung pagpupursige, perseverance, and understanding your people. Diba, that's the essence of governance. You govern because you understand the people. You don't govern because you only know or knew is what your teacher told you, but you cannot apply it. Yeah. So it's a real life situation. So you must be connected with the people. Now, for example, Estados Unidos. Birang-bira mo mapapakinggan ng mga gobyerno diyan, no? Poverty, except I think San Francisco has a big problem with homelessness, no? Or some places. I don't know specifically, but generally, you don't listen to your leaders and senators talks about poverty. They talk about where are we going in the next quarter with regard to job generation, business, and growth. Because you're past over it. Yung ba parang nalagpasan na yun ng Estados Unidos. Natapagtagumpayan na ng Estados Unidos, the general population must have a home, a decent home, and so on. In our case, going back here in the country, you must understand the general population, the majority of the population, which alam naman natin, kaya nga kayo nagpunta dyan sa Estados Unidos, makahanap ng maayos na pamumuhay because it's not available here at the time when you came and went to America. So it still exists today. And that, made me stronger in such a way dahil naunawaan ko yung katatayuan ng tao. Kaya mapapansin mo, Janet, simula nung nag-alkalde ako, wala ka na makikita. Yung focus, yung North Star of governance in Manila is always about the people. Pagiging maayos, walang kadugyutan, certainty and rules, housing, to give back dignity, school, hospital, parks, open green space for the future, clean air in a highly urbanized setting like the city of Manila, the most dense, and kami pinaka gateway of everything. We don't produce food, but everyone, even other products are being distributed here. So makikita mo yung konsepto ng paggogobyerno, tao ang basis. Tao yung bida, tao yung nauuna. So with that, yung ginawa naman natin sa Manila, hindi naman rocket science. In fact, it's duplicable and scalable. So we can do it anywhere. We can do it. It's always about the principle behind governance. What you believe. It's not what you politically believe. It's what you believe that are existing. That you are living in the real world, not in the wonderland. With high-polluting motherhood statement, and my daddy did, my husband did, they did, and so what did we do as a candidate? Where were we during the time ng pangangailangan ng tao? So I think at the very least, with 23 years of experience in governance, local legislation, executive, national government, and of course that includes GOCC. Mukha lang akong bata, pero kalahati ng buhay ko na dedicate na sa public service. Yung kasariwaan ko, Janet, inubos ng public service. So ito naman ang sinukli ko sa inyo, sa tao. Yes, it's true. ST o artista ako. Hindi naman ako porno katulad nung sinabi ng isang diarista na porno star. Iba naman yung porno. But yes, it's true. Yun na naging aking jumping board. But when I went to public service, kung mapapansin ninyo, i-GMG mo, i-Google mo ganda, Janet, na tinalikdan ko lahat yun. At inalay ko ng sarili ko sa public service because I value the mandate. I value the opportunity. Pinagsikapan ko naman. In fact, I have to be honest with you and to our fellow Filipinos, talaga namang hindi ako nakapag-aral. Totoo naman yan. When I entered into public service, high school finish ako. In fact, nakutya ako doon. Napagsalitaan ako ng hindi maganda. But, you know, not to blame my parents because hindi ako pinanganak na may gintong kutsara sa bibig. But, you know, sabi ko, sige nga. Then I saw the opportunity again to develop myself, to better myself, to be efficient, more efficient in service by, you know, acquiring such tool. So I went back. I prepared for this, preparing it, doing it, equipping myself, and I'm ready.
Thank you very much. And I know I have another question for Doc.
Hi, Janet.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, Doc. I'm really impressed that a doctor is joining politics. What made you join politics, and how do you think will this help you as a doctor to improve the state of the country as a vice president?
Yes, actually, there are many other doctors in politics. Like in the US, I closely watch your debates, Ben Carson, and you have this ophthalmologist who is very famous also, who ran for president. We have President Mahathir from Malaysia, who is also a doctor. Mahathir is one of my idols. He said, doctors can be better than lawyers because lawyers, as politicians, they just look at what is legal and not legal. But doctors really want to help the poor. We go out of the box to help the poor. And that is what Yorme Isko brings to the table. Talagang puro out of the box yung mga ideas niya eh. Because we really need new normal. It's a new normal in COVID. There's also a new normal in politics. Before, health was not important in the Philippines, Janet. It was number 5 to number 6 in our people's rank of priorities. Laging money, jobs, security. But now, for the first time, health is number 1 because of the COVID pandemic. So unless we go out of, we can solve COVID here, hindi talaga. It cannot be solved. And number 1 for COVID, which I like what you're doing in the States, is the trust. You need the trust of the people. People should trust the government. If they don't trust the government, they will not get vaccinated. They will not follow protocols. They will not drink the medicines for COVID. So yun talagang problema natin. That's what I see here. So we need more doctors in government, a little less generals, you know. They have their roles. So yun lang po. So, and I think I can become a very good vice president, especially with Yorme as our president.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Janet. Now, this time we'd like to call upon a second generation journalist, a second generation Filipino American journalist.
Janet, Winston, sorry. Janet,
Sorry.
I'm supposed to be there, I think this coming weeks eh. Kaya lang di lang ako pwede kasi maka-quarantine ako eh. Ang daming trabaho. And then please extend my regards and thanks to the Filipino community there. I think I'll be given again Gawad America Foundation award.
Yeah.
Sa Hollywood yun eh. Sa Hollywood kasi naalala ko lang sinabi ni Winston, you're from Hollywood. No? So please extend my gratitude to our fellow Filipinos choosing me as I think the Lakandula Award this time. So anyways, send my regards.
Looking forward to meeting you.
Hindi lang ako makapunta. Sorry. Maraming trabaho. But I already wrote the foundation. Thank you. Go ahead, Winston. Sorry.
No problem. Thank you again, Janet. And then now, Yorme and Doc Willie, we'd like to call upon a second generation journalist, second generation Filipino American journalist here representing her legacy outlet, the Asian Journal. Please welcome Ms. Cristina Oriel. Cristina, please unmute your mic.
Thank you, Winston. Hi, Mayor Moreno. It's great to meet you, and thank you for taking the time. My first question, well, it's a two-part question. It's kind of related. One is, you know, there are 100,000 plus dual citizens eligible to vote here in the U.S. How are they part of your campaign plan, you know, engaging them up until May when they cast their ballots? And if you're elected, how would you kind of restore diplomatic relations with the U.S. and what are some of your priorities in kind of the the ties between our two countries?
Well, one, dahil sa iyo, with your help, with this kind of forum, I hope we can reach them with your help. Second, I do believe the tarnish is the right word with regard to our diplomatic relationship. But sabi nga, Christina, pwede naman pakinangin ulit. Hindi naman nawala. But there is this type of distrust or mistrust. And I think we can gain it back. And I do believe that under the rule of law, in a civilized world, in a civilized time, we must be guided by law and order. And that includes our relationship with our neighboring countries here in Asia and our old allies, like in the case of America. And there are existing agreements, the MDTs and all other treaties, trade treaties, and that includes BFA. In fact, I made it public already that we will continue the BFA to equip with regard to our military capabilities so that in future tense we'll be more equipped so that we'll guard whatever is left in an archipelagic country like Philippines, where some countries putting muscle on us because we've shown weakness. At saka masyado nating isinoga, tawag dito, sorry, ano ba yung isinoga? Masyado natin binenta ang sarili natin sa mga ibang bansa. That's why we'll take that as an opportunity, that kind of adversity. What is it for us as Filipino? If I'm going to deal with China, America, and neighboring countries, and that includes Europe, it's always about us. I cannot blame America, I cannot blame China and other countries in this world making their first priority is about them. That should be the case. So the sauce for the gander is the sauce for the goose. What can I get from you as a state? What it will serve? What kind of service or things that we can get from that kind of agreement? Because relationships is a two-way road. Hindi naman po pwedeng one way. Baka naman na may neglect din sa ibang parte, let's cure it. But we'll bring back the Philippines to the world stage. I guarantee you that. We need that. It's not only, it's just a commitment. We need to do it because at the end of the day, no man is an island. Like our country, we need to cooperate, deal, and build relationship and create a better impression to the world. And madali naman yon at saka maunawain din naman yun at malalalim na rin ang ating relasyon sa mga bansang yun, katulad ng Estados Unidos.
Thank you. Well, good luck to you, and hopefully we'll see you for a state visit here in the US.
State visit ko raw doon sa ano yun, yung inuman, yung kainan ng Pilipino. Kanina sinasabi nila Manong Andy, nila Ray. Ano yun? Jerry's Grill. Doon daw state visit. Okay, Christina, go ahead. Sorry.
Okay, thank you. Question for Doc Willie. So one of the big concerns right now for FIL-AMs especially is, they want to go back and visit the Philippines, but, they're kind of turned off by the travel restrictions, particularly the quarantine. Given your medical expertise, how would you change, kind of reformat the travel restrictions while, helping maintain public health?
Yes, of course, we need tourists, especially our FIL-AM relatives. We'll make it easier. Sometimes they have too much restrictions. Like Filipinos are always worried about foreigners bringing diseases to the Philippines. But, sometimes it's the other way around. I think you are fully vaccinated with Pfizer, Moderna, J&J. So why should we, prohibit you from coming here. Maybe it's a shorter quarantine. We will see if it's 5 days, 10 days. So actually, we should, we should not be too concerned about foreigners bringing diseases to the country because we have many more problems here in the country. Thank you, Christine.
Thank you. Back to our moderator. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Christina. All right. Our next question now comes from the educational sector, specifically from the University of California, one of the finest institutions in the country, world-class certainly. And this particular question comes from one of the higher ranked, if not the highest ranked Filipino American within the UC system. He is the Vice Chancellor at the University of California at Irvine, and his name is Edgar Dormatorio. Edgar, please unmute your mic and with your questions, please.
Great, thank you, Winston. Hoping you can hear me. It's an honor to be here. Good morning, Mayor Isko and Doc Willie. My name is Edgar Dormatorio. I'm
Edgar.
I work for the University of California. I'm also on the board of directors for SIPA, Search to Involve Filipino Americans, which is one of the oldest nonprofit organizations in the greater Los Angeles area. So this question really is for Mayor Isko, and it's sort of related to what Christina asked earlier. But of course, we learned that you attended Harvard Kennedy School for Governance, so maybe you've spent some time here in the United States. You talked about some of your agenda items if you come to visit on a state visit to the US, but maybe you can expand on some other agenda items that you have. And in particular, what would your message be to the Filipino American communities here? We're saying this because the last president who came here on an official state visit was the late President Nonoy Aquino.
One thing for sure, I'm allowed to go to America. Anyway, I'm just teasing you. But given a chance, there will be an opportunity. We will try to make it as fruitful as possible. For example, there are hindi reciprocated yung dala nila ng goods sa atin sa dala natin ng goods sa kanila. Why the rules from that country so restrictive wherein we cannot, compete anymore? So is it our fault as a state or producer, or they just don't want and find ways to make it hard for us? But when they go to us, they will insist on some agreements and WTO and so on and so on. So I think that I need to clarify that so that we can cure the problem. If it is us, then we'll better our ways. Second, if you really our friend, an ally, in the first place, hindi naman po pwede puro skills lang yung nakukuha namin ng aming soldado. If you want us to help also your goal as a state and as an allies, huwag mo naman iwan sa kalsada yung kaibigan mo and make him walk in the dark. It has to be two-way. Yeah, that's why Edgar, ito si Lee Kuan Yew, hindi lang siya magaling sa mga policy niya sa buhay ng tao, how to elevate the life or way of living ng kanyang mga kababayan. But he also knows what he wants for his country when he's dealing with other countries. And it has to be reciprocated. So then, if there are some obligations on our part as a state and as an ally, we will fulfill that. We will participate with all transparency to them. But again, I'll go back to naputol si Edgar. I'll go back to the same. It has to be a two-way road. Hindi lang sila ang laging lamang. Hindi ko naman sinasabing lumamang din tayo. Pero sana well reciprocated yung mga bagay na kakailanganin natin. Na kung talagang malalim ang pagtingin nila sa atin. Wala si Edgar?
Do we lose Edgar? Edgar, do we lose you?
Nawala eh.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, Edgar, if you're on, if you need to come back on with the rest of your question, but that's a good reminder for us that we have time, I think, for 2 final questions. I know that just to do a time check. So we want to call upon our next to the last question, and that is from a familiar face in Dr. Ray Manguni. So Dr. Ray, take it away with your question.
Thank you, Yorme, for spending time with us tonight.
Hi, Ray.
Hi. Thank you, Doc Willie, for being with us tonight. And since we're both health practitioners, I want to focus my question to you, Doc Willie, about healthcare and how our healthcare here in the United States, retrospectively, is a little better than what is in the Philippines. What we want to ask you is, in the next 100 days, what's the target for you as far as in bettering the Philippine healthcare system?
Yes, thank you so much, Ray. Actually, I'm an internist and a cardiologist. First 100 days, I think we need a new health secretary. That's the first. That's the first. I've read rumors. I hope they are not true that the health secretary will be retained. It's a big problem. Second, we need new leadership in IATF. We cannot have, I have nothing against General Galvez. He's a very nice person, but we need someone, who is good in a health worker, a doctor, to lead that. And we need to change the guidelines. We cannot have all these confusing MECQ, GCQ, alert level 1, 2, 3, it really has no sense. And we need more regular updates in COVID from trusted sources, so we can fight the anti-vaxxers, the fake news. There are so many fake news going around in the Philippines, like this medicine can cure you. We have to put a stop on this. And of course, we have to start building our hospitals, paying our health workers, and planning for our own Philippine CDC. We need to train new people like biotechnologists, virologists. It's really a long-term plan. It's not a short-term plan. So, of course, we need to buy the second-generation vaccines, not just the booster vaccines. There will be new, right? The second one that will be good for Delta variant. So I'm always abreast with the new data. And of course, I'm always very careful about the side effects. I know about the side effects of, like, say, myocarditis with Pfizer or Moderna and other side effects. So we are always trying to weigh the pros and the cons before we lay out all these vaccines for our children and for our adult population. Thank you, Ray, for your question.
Thank you. Mayor Isko, my question for you is, what is the #1 goal in the first 100 days of your presidency?
Well, I will not limit myself with 100 days. If I can do it in 30 days, 60 days, or even 6 months. What matters most to me is that we have to go back to normalcy. We reinforce, we strengthen our facility, medical facility, so that those who are infected or going to be infected, because COVID will stay. I think scientists will agree with me. It's going to stay for a while until maubos na lahat. I mean, everybody almost got infected. As long as you're protected with the vaccine and you have enough medicine for a particular level of infection, you have equipment, facility that we segregate those who are infected, we move on with our lives, go back to work, learn how to live with COVID-19 and go back to work safely. That's the goal. That's why yesterday I was asked, sabi ko, ang goal ko, December, in 6 months, normalcy. That's my goal. Because by the time nakabakunahan ko na kayo ng booster. And it can be done. It's a matter of pooling resources, right people, getting people good in their field of undertaking. And it can be done. We did it. We did it. There's a prototype of it. So imagine March, April, May, June, July, August. When we were told 70%, sabi sa amin, October or September, kami todas na natapos namin. Despite of limited resources. Now, can you imagine the vast resources of the office of the president, of the state? It's just that kung focus kasi, katulad na sinasabi ni Doc Willie, paano mabubuhay ang tao? Bakunahan mo, lagyan mo ng gamot, make it available, merong medical frontliners, komportable ang buhay nila, then may pasilidad ka, may equipment ka, that's it. Life must go on. Move forward, move fast. Because nowadays, maraming gutom na yan, Rhea, just so you know. And there is what you call involuntary hunger. Maraming nawawalan ng trabaho. I'm just happy that before this interview, we've gained about 80 new jobs by opening one store again and another two store coming in, McDonald's. Sabi ko nga doon sa may-ari ng McDonald's, lakas ng loob ninyo. No. And he said, we believe in you. And in fact, sabi ko nga sa iyo, Ray, kayang labanan itong pandemyang ito. We've lost 7% of our business registered business in the city of Manila. But with aggressiveness and liberal interpretation of rules, and some is just do your job and do other things. Yung pandemic approach, may plano, gawin mo yung plano, then maghanap buhay. We've lost 7%. We've gained 12% new businesses for this year. And that's what you call 12 minus 7. That's positive 5. We've lost some, win more. Because of a policy. Because there is direction. Because there is preparedness. Because we are ready. Because we've been preparing. Because we continue to confront. Because we don't sleep. Because we attend to it. Because we address it. Wala nang pointing fingers. Because that's a waste of time. In a chaotic situation, like, if I may borrow the concept and ideas of my professor in Boston, he said, in times of war, movement creates high probability of surviving the war. Metaphorically, we are at war with COVID-19. This is our lives being killed by this infection. Our lives being destroyed economically by this infection. So we are at battle with COVID-19. And movement give us high probability of surviving. Or else, just be a sitting duck in the middle of the battlefield. Di ba? So, yun yung approach na gusto kong gawin. Kaya, kung maalala mo, nilatag ko na Ray yung una kong economic policy, yung cushioning the socio-economic impact to the lives of our people by cutting 50% on petroleum and 50% on electricity consumption in terms of tax. So taxes. Pagpapasin mo, no, hindi ko pinakailaman yung negosyo. Pinakailaman ko yung buwis. Ang nagparaya, gobyerno. No? Ang tawag ko dyan sa ginagawa ko sa Maynila, delayed gratification principle. Pagparaya ka, maibsan, to ease ng kinakarap ng tao. At ang nagparaya, gobyerno. Para pakinabangan ng tao. After making that public, no, as a matter of one of the economic policy stated publicly by yours truly, The following day, DOF said, Department of Finance, with the idea of Isko, the country will lose 130 billion pesos a year. Lalong tumibay ang damdamin ko, Manong Andy, Manong Ray, Manong Bong, Manong Tony. Bakit? Abay, may 130 billion akong ayuda sa tao. If the country will lose 130 billion, pero 130 billion naman ang naibigay ko na ibalik sa tao, I think we're on the right direction. Bakit? O tingnan ninyo, I'll put things in right perspective. 5 trillion ang pondo ng gobyerno. 800 billion pambayad ng utang, debt servicing. 4.2 trillion ang tutustusin ng gobyerno. That is only 3% or a fraction of the General Appropriation Act. Pero 130 billion in the hands of the poor, middle class, upper middle class, the ABCs, the pabrika, mga household, may pera ang tao, tangible. At any savings sa tao, people will spend. The velocity of money will be felt. Iikot dahil may sobrang pera, may savings, at saka walang diskresyon. Di ba, nagdududa nga kayo na baka pakialaman pa ng mga taong gobyerno ang pera ng taong bayan. Ito, bumalik kusa for a simple policy. No? Nagparaya ang gobyerno, makinabang naman ang tao. And as you all know, maraming kapwa ko kandidatong pangulo na naggawa ng statement of the same. No? Kasi mukhang may sense naman yata, Ray. So, these are the things that I'm going to attend in the next 6 months at the very least. So that by January of 2023, we groundbreak here, we groundbreak there, groundbreaking here, groundbreaking there. We'll involve again private public partnership. We'll go back to that road. We'll continue what they have started already in the build para hindi naman masayang yung mga pera ninyo, yung mga buwis na binayad ninyo. And first week na gagawin ko, halimbawa na, sana magdilang Angel ka, Ray, with regard to your question. No? Kung sakaling pinalad ako, we'll reach out to the people, those who were hurt in the election. We'll try to be magnanimous in victory. Abutin natin. We will talk senses with new sets of Congress, new sets of Senator. Yan ang gagawin natin first week. But after that, move kagad tayo. And it has to be fast. Because every day, people are losing their jobs. Every day, people are being kicked out from their rented homes. Alam naman natin dito, ang buhay dito, di ba? Manong Andy, Manong Tony, ito yung mga matatanda, pasensya na kayo pag sila ina-address ko, sila Manong Bong. Kasi naranasan nila dito sa Pilipinas na mapalayas ka pag wala ka ng pambayad sa kasera. That's the real world. Yeah? And we don't want that. So we must act fast. So I would rather focus on something that what we can do day one. And the goal is by December of 2023, everybody's out. Everybody's going to dinner. Everybody going to mall. Everybody's going to churches, going back to their norms, to school. Why? Because everybody's protected because they are vaccinated. We cannot live in hiding. We cannot. We will never ever survive if we keep on hiding. But we must be responsible at the same manner sa kabilang banda, no? Kung gagawin ko yon bilang pamahalaan, uuobligahin din kita bilang mamamayan na maging responsable. Kailangan tayong sabay. Kasi, Ray, kahit nandiyan kayo sa Amerika, iisang bangka tayo. Paglubog ng bangka natin, sama-sama din kayo kasi mga mahal nyo sa buhay, nandito pa. At the end of the day, kayo rin naman nasasakit ang ulo. Ray, kailangan ko ng panggastos. Wala akong pambayad sa tuition fee. Ray, kailangan ko ng ganito. Tony, kailangan ko ng ganyan. Bong, Andy, and so on and so forth. So, yun ang focus ko. Nung mag-mayor ako, I was asked also with the 100 days. In fact, I made a promise, a 10-year plan, very straightforward. Wala nang buhatan ng bangko. I made a commitment and promise to the people of Manila that I'll do things in 10 years. Nilatag ko yun, 10 years. Sabi ko nga, tinatanong pa ako ng tao, bakit 10 years? 9 years ka lang magme-mayor. Because on the 10th year, definitely, mapakinabangan mo na lahat ng epekto nung gagawin. Modesty aside, Ray, lahat ng pinangako ko ng 10 years, naganap in 2 years. Plus pandemic. May resibo. Ibig sabihin, may prueba. So, ngayon, mahirap magsalita, baka buladas. Kasi kandidato. But I challenge to each and every one of you, magsiyasat kayo at magnilay-nilay kayo. Sino at ano ang sinasabi, ito ba ay may prueba. So, I guarantee you, Ray, if it can be done in less than 100 days, so be it. It can be done to stabilize everything in 6 months, so be it. But it has to be done. It has to be attended. In fact, papakita ko lang sa iyo. My suite. Hallway. That's how we do it in Manila. In the hardest rule of quarantine, which is ECQ, we don't go home. We pay the price of public service. That's how dedicated we are. That's how dedicated I am in a given task. That's how I put life in provisions of laws, on how understanding laws, and put actions on them. So yun yung aking trust. To make your relatives maramdaman nila may gobyerno silang masasandalan. At the very least. Ayun. Kaya nangyari sa Maynila, kaya mangyari sa buong bansa.
Thank you, Yorme.
Thank you so much for that, Yorme. We have one last question. Before we do that, this is a good reminder for us here that if you have not already, to register to vote. Remember, you can vote in the Philippine election provided you are registered, I believe, with the Philippine consulate as a dual citizen. So please get the word out, help get the word out, and you can actively.
Tama yun, Winston. Tama yun. Be part of the change by falling in line and waiting for 3-4 hours to choose our leaders. Tama yun, Winston. Ha? That's a nice gesture.
All right. And then one final thing too, before we get to our final question, ladies and gentlemen, this is not an official Pinoy Zoom meeting without the group photo, syempre, at the end. So please stick around for that after the final question is answered.
Winston.
Yes, sir.
Kayong mga nasa Estados Unidos, nga pala, ang dami niyong pinadalang pera sa akin. Maraming mga Pilipino sa Canada at saka sa Amerika nagpadala ng pera sa akin. $20, $500, $300, $1,000, and so on and so forth. Ang dami talaga. No? I would please to tell, baka naman may makausap kayo na nagpadala dito o kakilala nyo. Please extend the gratitude on behalf of the city government, on behalf of the people of Manila. Thank you. O lahat ang pinadala nyo dito, sininop namin. Piniga ko yung bimpo. Ginamit ko sa utaw. Sa tao, no? Dito. Marami doon na itatag at nagamit. Kaya thank you. Thank you. Baka lang makaligtahan ko, sorry. Kasi noong kasagsagan ng pandemya, dami nagpadala ng pera rito. Mga immigrants and OFWs there in America. Kasi puro dolyar yung natanggap ko galing sa Estados Unidos sa Canada.
Okay, so somewhat fitting that in an exclusive audience with Filipino Americans, our final question comes from a gentleman who represents an organization called the FIL-AM. Please welcome Neil Estrada. Neil, unmute your mic, and you have the mic for the last question of the session.
Thank you, Winston. Good evening, good morning, Doc Willie, Mayor Isko. Thank you for all that you do, and hello to all my fellow FIL-AMs. So, with a lot of choices for expats and Filipino Americans to invest their money, And with all the challenges occurring in the Philippines right now, in regards to the economy, in regards to COVID, healthcare, et cetera, why would now be a good time to invest in real estate in the Philippines?
Wow! Napaka, ano yan. There is always opportunity in adversity. It's a matter of how you look at the two sides of the coin. In downturn, there is opportunity and cash is king. We know that already. Now, if economically challenged ang bansa, mura ang lahat. So there is no downwards but upwards. So it's high time to go back here and invest here. In fact, I encourage you to go to Manila. Manila, not Metro Manila. Manila. Neil, you tell them, before I became mayor, the average investment in Manila is about 20-30 billion. When I changed the policy, modesty aside, and data don't lie naman. First year, 123 billion pesos. Second year, 147 billion pesos. By putting things in right perspective, taxation, bureaucracy, adapting to technology, and certainty and predictability in our rules, in our directions. So, kaya nung pandemya, kahit pa paano, may trabaho, may hanap buhay sa Manila. And as I have said, Neil, Mr. Young, about an hour ago, one big McDonald's in Manila opened today, and there's another 2 coming in. Because yun yung pinapakita namin, may gobyerno in Manila. As a country as a whole, yes, you're welcome. There's an opportunity everywhere here. Depende lang anong perspective, anong industry mo. But in real estate, go to Manila. Medyo liberal lang interpretation namin sa batas. Especially with the FAR, the floor area ratio, the zoning. I want jobs. I want investment. Investment jobs. Investment jobs. Business jobs. I want jobs and jobs because I cannot sustain ayuda. No state, for that matter, across the world can sustain by the state-sponsored ayuda. No, you cannot do that. There are other things that needs to be addended. But what stabilizes family, what dignity sa isang tao is to give them opportunity to work, to better himself. And for that opportunity to arrive, you need to gain the trust back or trust of new businesses na magnegosyo sa Manila. And in our case, magnegosyo sa bansa. But, and you tell them, tell everyone, someday, somehow, if, Neil, bibigyan niyo ako ng pagkakataon at katulad ni Doc Willie na partner ko, our rules is certain. We don't change the rules in the middle of the ball game. We will be more predictable. We will be more cooperative, and you will have a government who listens. And no abuse will come to them. We guarantee you that. At the same manner, the sauce for the gander is the sauce for the goose. I will not allow foreigners, that includes our neighbor here, to abuse because they are investor. They will follow our rules, our laws in our own land because we are certain about our rules. So no harm will come to them. You tell them that, given a chance someday, somehow. We did it in Manila. Again, sorry. We did it in Manila from 20-30 billion in 1 year, 130 billion, 123 billion. Second, that you can Google it, Neil. Manila from dugyot, gulo, chaos, no direction. A year after, we became competitive to the world. Hindi kami maganda nila. Hindi kami katulad ng BGC. Hindi kami katulad ng Makati Ayala Boulevard o Ayala Avenue. But the course of action did by the city government brought us to being competitive to 263 cities in the world. We landed top 50 in the world in the Bloomberg Philanthropist competition. Yeah, you see Mayor Bloomberg. and Bloomberg TV. And that speaks of business and ease of doing business. We were awarded after more than a decade. We were given the seal of good financial housekeeping by the DILG. Last year, while it is true that we are the capital of the country, supposedly bring the banner and the flag of the country, pero dahil nga chaotic kami, last year, 7 major awards in DTI. 7 top and major awards in DTI. Grand Slam. From nowhere. From basura. So this kind of statement that in the future, in future tense, you tell them, we're going to be certain, predictable. We don't change the rules in the middle of the ball game. No harm will come to them. Go to the Philippines. Invest in the Philippines.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Mayor Isko, Doc Willie. Ladies and gentlemen, are we looking at the next president and vice president of the Philippines? Only time will tell, but certainly you have a say in this. Let folks know what you heard tonight, what you learned that was new. Perhaps it reaffirmed what you were already believing, or perhaps it changed your mind. Regardless, we want to thank Mayor Isko, Doc Willie, for giving us their time. We want to thank you for participating, ladies and gentlemen. And this is, again, not a Pinoy Zoom without the group photo. So if we can ask you all to please turn on your video so we can avail of the group photo, and then we will make this official. All right. I think we scared some people off, but that's okay. All right, is everybody on that needs to be on? Okay, so I guess we could take this photo. Great. Maraming pong salamat, Mayor Isko.
Winston,
Doc Willie, thank you again for your time.
Bong, Maki, Tony, Andy, Amba, Lito Edwin, Robert, Carlos, Jojo, Armandine, Lito, Reganit, and Maria Dumatol, Jojo R, Peterson, Steve Angeles, Ray Gerard, TJ Manoto, Janet, Rudy, Shari, Ray, Neil, and of course, Doc Willie. Ingat kayo. Thank you, Winston. Mag-ingat kayo dyan. Ha?
Thank you. We hope to see you again and hear from you soon.
God first.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Good morning,
thank you,
po.
thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good night.
Morning.
Thank you.